Thank you very much, Mary. I think the applause in the room says it all. I'm very moved myself to hear you speaking again. And your final comments there just remind me of the event I attended in New York last year, the Women Leaders for Climate Justice, and the tradition you have of getting people up to dance at the end. There's something so, it also reminds me of a meeting I was at recently in Nairobi, which was really profoundly about building a new paradigm, that sense of Ubuntu, that sense of Mihil. And we danced and we sang, because sometimes it's the strongest sign of resistance, is to actually to use your body to sing and to dance. I'm not proposing we will all get up and dance and sing, but it's just, if you look at down history, many of the big changes have come not just through evidence-based, of course we want to base everything we do on the strongest possible evidence, but on the spirit that puts that evidence into action. We have some time now. Mary has agreed to stay with us for the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes, to answer some questions. So I would ask, we have two questions have been pre-prepared, while the rest of you are putting your thinking caps on. So I would ask Anne-Marie Riley to ask her question first.
Thank you. It's quite an honour to be first. My name is Anne-Marie Riley. I'm here on behalf of the Lutheran Church in Ireland. So my question for Mrs. Robinson, and it's quite an honour to be addressing you, thank you for being here, is what do you see as the specific role for faith leaders in addressing climate justice, and what can we do here in Ireland? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. You can all hear me, can you? This is working, okay. I think it's a very good question, and I think we've got great leadership, obviously, from Pope Francis, but he's clearly reaching out to all, and reaching out in particular to other faith leaders. And I think it's important because if you think about where religious leaders tend to be, they tend to be in communities, they tend to be with people, they tend to be very influential with people. And I think if we can harness that influence and have different faiths link on this, because it's for all, and I think it would be good to have religious and faith leaders of different denominations now speaking out, as Pope Francis has done. For example, this is Ramadan, during Ramadan, in a way, there was a Hindu day on Sunday in India, and Prime Minister Modi, in his own way, I think, was indicating that there are good dimensions to a people who practice yoga, and so it can be done in different ways. But I would like to see faith leaders in Ireland, because I think we still have to have a conversation in this country, a real conversation about how we want to become, as Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said when he was here, that he admired greatly the global leadership that Ireland is giving in tackling hunger. And he said, I want you to align your climate policy and give a similar leadership. Well, Secretary General isn't a faith leader in that sense, but he's a moral voice. And I think it's moral voices that are going to matter a lot. And so I would really encourage leaders of different faiths to speak out strongly, including in this country.
We now have a question from a representative from the Trocaire Climate Change Challenge. Can they identify? Yeah, okay, he's right in the middle there. If you just say your name and...
I'm Carl Hanifin, and I'm just an average TY student from Tralee. Anyway, my question is, according to World Bank Group leader Kim Young-kim, ending poverty and ensuring sustainability are the key challenges of our time, and energy is central to both of them. Following on from the creation of the Sustainable Energy for All initiative, what action do you think the EU should now take to ensure sustainable energy is delivered to all? Thank you.
Thank you for that well thought out question, and it is a very important one. I think in a way Jim Kim is almost right. Sustainable energy is central to both enabling development and tackling climate change. The Sustainable Energy for All initiative, which I am part of the lead group on that, can play a very important role in achieving a transition to zero carbon and zero poverty. What we need to see this year is the kind of transformative leadership that will ensure that countries are able to achieve sustainable development. And that conversation still hasn't got onto the right level. We still have this kind of divide between the developed or richer countries and how much climate finance. I think it's all seen in terms of aid, whereas it should be seen in terms of what we want to get. Where do we want to get to? We want to get to a zero carbon world as fast as possible, because that's best for everybody. And most of the development will be in developing countries because they have to develop their infrastructure. So they need energy. They need clean energy. There's a very good report just in the last few days called Power, People and Planet, which is the report of the African Climate Progress Panel. And it's all about getting clean energy to Africa as quickly as possible. So I think it is really very important. Thank you.
I'll now take 3 questions. So if you raise your hand, if you would like to ask a question, the mic will come up to you. Okay, we have one over here on the right-hand side, in the second row. Down the way, down the way. And we have one over here with the blue dress in the middle. So if you go first, thanks.
Hi, Marilyn. As you're aware, a common approach to climate change is divesting from fossil fuels, which you have mentioned in your speech today. As I'm going to be a student of Trinity College in September, and you are Chancellor of Dublin University, what would you say to Trinity College about divesting from fossil fuels?
Well, an excellent question. I have in fact had a conversation some time ago with the Provost on this very subject, which probably won't surprise you, and Trinity is looking into the question of divesting. He was able to tell me not so long ago that there's no direct investment in fossil fuels, but there are some economic packages, I think he called the financial packages, that will have to be looked into. So you're going to be a student there, you can follow up on that. And I would just say, because I admire and I think the divestment movement is having impact, because it's also linking with the idea of stranded assets. And I mentioned in my speech that we have to leave about 2/3 of the known fossil fuel resources in the world in the ground, or use them differently, not burn them. And this is something that I think we need to encourage more people to realise and make this a sort of accepted part of the way forward, so that we move ever more quickly into renewables. So I like to think not just about divestment, but also investment in renewables. Wherever possible, reinvesting that money in renewables, so that we are moving rapidly to the world that we need to get to, which will be a much better world for you, your children, your grandchildren, and into the future. It's a world with jobs, it's a world with innovation, it's a world that we have to get people to look forward to and do everything we can to take the opportunity to move to. And there's the new climate economy report and other reports that are indicating, how we can try to do that more rapidly. Anyway, good luck in Trinity when you start.
Thank you. Over here.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Robinson, Cara Augustenborg. I teach climate change at UCD, and I have to say it's an absolute honour to finally get to hear you speak, because as someone working in climate on the ground here in Ireland, your work is inspirational to me, particularly as a mother to, you're a true role model to all of us. I think many of us who work here in Ireland on climate action would agree that it's a real uphill struggle. It's incredibly challenging and frustrating. And I was just wondering if you, as a role model to us, could provide some advice on what we, as ordinary citizens working on climate action in Ireland, could do today, tomorrow, or next week to influence real change here in your home country. Thank you.
Well, I really like your question, but I'm slightly restrained in my answer because I have to keep away from the directly political issues, mainly because it's good for presidents to not continue after office to comment. I really am very encouraged by this conference. It's what we need more of. We need more dialogue. We need more encouraging of each other. Those of us who are hoping to see more rapid change. I would love to see more ways in which we can interest young people. We've had good discussion with the Young Scientist exhibition, and there will be a climate justice prize in next year to interest again young people to think about not just climate but climate justice. To think. And I think that there are two real entry points. One is the one that Ban Ki-moon touched on. I think we are all very proud, and we should be, of the role that Ireland has played globally on tackling hunger. And it's people like Tom Arnold and many others who have given real leadership. And Tom was the coordinator of the Scale Up Nutrition movement until recently. He stepped in when Dr. David Nabarro went to focus on the Ebola crisis. And I'm also on that Sun League group, and he's done a great job. But everyone would recognise that he has the kind of authority of the fact that he's Irish, and Ireland has stepped up to the plate in an incredible way on tackling hunger. You can't do that now unless you also are completely as similarly concerned about and working on climate. Ireland is growing our agriculture, so we have a particular challenge. I'm not saying we shouldn't be growing our agriculture. I think it's probably a good idea because the world is going to need food for up to 9 billion people by 2050. But we need to have this conversation, and I think it's opening up spaces for conversation. The other conversation is the conversation that I'm hearing more and more from the business community and others, that it will be much better if we move more rapidly to renewables. And then we have to talk about how we can address the issue of renewables where nobody wants them in their backyard and all this. But we have to have that conversation. So I think we can really be encouraged together at a conference like this and plan maybe more collective strategies out of this conference and see how we can somehow, as I said, ensure that that tidal wave of justice will rise up and hope and history rise.
Okay, in the middle here. Sorry, there's one gentleman at the back who's had his hand up for a while with red tie. And then this lady in the middle.
Great to have you here, Mary. In times gone by, the East India Company recruited tribal armies and set one against the other, all for vested profit. I'd just like to ask, certain corporations, particularly oil, they're recruiting the brightest, most handsome, articulate, the top-notch out of universities, and they're basically using them to sell a demonic gospel of destruction as salespeople. Now, you're a practical woman, you've travelled the world. How do you deal with such mercenary, destructive people? Thank you.
Well, I did actually see a film recently, a documentary, I don't know whether anybody else has seen it, called The Merchants of Doubt. And it echoes some of your sentiments, to say the least. But actually, I'm pleased to see that there is a certain break in the oil companies now, because they do have a lot of power and they have a lot of resources. But 7 of them, European companies, have now said they want to work with the UN to get a price put on carbon. And we do need a price put on carbon, because carbon is polluting. Carbon is damaging our world. And we need to make it more expensive. We need to put a price on it. We also need to safeguard poor people from the impact of that, which would be rising prices for fuel and even for food. So we have to do it the climate justice way, but we do need to do it. And I think we need to put more pressure on oil leaders and oil companies, and in particular coal companies, in order that they don't open up new coal plants rather than start closing the coal plants that they have already. There are plans, as you probably know, in the world for a very significant number of coal plants, but then that comes back, as far as I'm concerned, to the need for greater solidarity. Prime Minister Modi in India has expressed, put forward very ambitious plans to go solar, and he's going to do that. And then he's also going to go into coal, because coal is cheap in real terms for him now as an option. It's in the interest of the world that he goes even more solar and not into coal. But he can't do that unless there is much more solidarity in our world. And that's where, for me, it's no longer a question of development aid or even, climate finances development aid. It's the means to ambition to get to a clean energy world faster. And I have no illusions about the folk you talked about. Just put it that way.
Thank you so much. I just mentioned one word: Bush Jr. The damage that individual has done to the world at every level.
We'll have one final question from the lady in the middle.
Thank you very much indeed, Mary, for the excellent presentation.
Where are you?
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
And for your clarion and prophetic call over the many years. I'm Denise Boyle, representing Mercy International, and we're working on the Global Justice Programme. We have an incredibly professional, dedicated group at the UN in New York who've been following very closely the SDGs, particularly the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, the human, and what they are lobbying for is to have the human right to water and sanitation included, which has been confirmed by the Human Rights Council Commission. However, the enormous roadblock is the private sector. So this is the last week in which they're lobbying. It's a massive network. So I wonder if you have any comments or suggestions as to how we can counter this increasingly strong influence of the private sector, which is truly challenging fundamental human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very thoughtful and well-framed question. Not that the others weren't too, but I'm just particularly taken by the way in which you see the issue. And I know the work of Mercy International in the UN, so I honour that work very much. I think there is a real problem, and it's interesting that Pope Francis spoke about the human right to access to water, and I think he knows how to frame that right in human rights terms. There's no doubt that whether it's in relation to water, whether it's in relation to food production, that there is a corporate lobbying and corporate voice. Even on climate smart agriculture, there's a climate smart agriculture at the global level, which is very corporate led, a lot of it. And then there is climate smart agriculture in Africa, which is trying to be bottom up, a small farmer led. And I think most Irish and other NGOs are focusing on trying to help that bottom up led. But there's the pressure of the food lobby, the pressure of corporations in relation to water. I think, I just think that it's a good fight, and I hope that it will succeed. We, for our part, are very aware of the importance of getting both a kind of overarching reference to human rights, as was in the Cancun agreement, that all climate action must respect all human rights, and gender equality into the climate agreement in December in Paris. But equally, we need as strong language as possible and as clear language on human rights in the Sustainable Development Goals. I just want, since this is the last question, I understand, and you referenced the Sustainable Development Goals, to emphasize that link between what will happen in Paris, what will happen next month, and I'm worried about financing for development. We need countries, including Ireland, to commit again to the 0.7%, and maybe even to say it was 0.7% when we were talking about the 8 Millennium Development Goals, 7 of them relating to developing countries. We're now asking them to commit to 17 goals and 169 targets and the rest of it. So surely maybe we should go up to the 1%. And you know, that's the way we should be talking. And also looking for the private finance, you know, the leveraging of it. But there's a very nice paragraph or sub-paragraph in Goal 13 on climate that I hope stays there, because I think it could be quite interesting. It's a goal, and I can't paraphrase the wording exactly, but it says that women and young people should be involved in framing decisions and implementing them at grassroots level on climate change. So it's kind of linking in women and young people very proactively in developing countries on climate change. And it's an unusual goal, unusual sub part of a goal, and I hope it stays there, which is a bit away from your water. But anyway, I hope that Mercy International will keep fighting hard on that with many others.
Thank you very much.
And they were great questions, and it's just wonderful to be here. I feel already, you can feel it. Look at me. I'm all enthused. I might even get up and dance. What?
Well, Mary, thank you so much. I think this session has far exceeded our expectations in terms of the start to this conference. I think we'll be going to bed tonight, for those of us who are coming back tomorrow, with lots of thoughts in our heads, lots of ideas, lots of challenges, provocations that we need to bring back with us tomorrow when we return